Thank you everyone for joining. In this presentation, we are going to talk about securing the future of workflows and AI agents. My name is Simon. I'm a security engineer for the security and privacy team. I joined Mercari in 2018, and I am a member of the threat detection and response team. I'm mainly focusing on threat detection and anomaly detection using code and AI.
Hi everyone, my name is Danny. I'm the manager of the security and privacy planning team at Mercari, and I'm also involved in various other teams, including AI security and AI governance.
So when we are talking about automation, what changed in the recent years? So first, we should start by clarifying what we mean by workflow automation. So up to now, the reason why any company could process everything that they were working on was by having a human sitting behind their computers and connecting all the applications that they needed together. So someone was just authenticating on their computer, they were operating the apps, doing cut and paste left and right, and that worked. Human were the agents, bridging the context between all the applications, even if they were not meant to work together. So then automation was introduced. In the computer world, that means something like using scripts. That means also workflow automation like Zapier or N8N recently, or using massive integrated systems like ServiceNow and SAP. So then came the LLMs, large language models, with the recent capacity explosion that they had, just managed to connect all this together, and with text and image processing, we start to have a situation where LLMs are equipped with tools and can start to operate the apps like humans were doing before. So LLMs can now interact with the environment using MCPs, APIs, and they can even take over the desktop now. With these capacities, now LLMs have agency. They can act like humans. These AI agents still need to be wired in place. They need to be granted access, given instructions about their task. But contrary to classical automation, if then else, they can actually adapt themselves if there's any issue. Today, every vendors out there are trying to sell us solution that will leverage LLM and try to replace the humans. So things can go wrong from there, but let's focus on only 4 of them. The first one is there's too many workflows. Well, for the companies themselves, this is not a problem. Same for the users. The more automation we have, the easier the work gets done, and the more we save money. That's very nice. But for the security team, this is a problem. We have to keep track of these workflows. We have to look at the permission they have and the kind of resource they are accessing. With new workflows being created every day, there's way too many that for us to be able to look, control, or review manually. That makes no sense. The second problem that could go wrong is LLM maintenance. Corporate environments are living things. They are moving, they are organic. Everything changes all the time. On the other side, automation is normally quite fixed. It's not meant to be changing all the time. So environments are drifting over time. Automation needs to follow as well. And if we don't, we have the third problem coming in. We have orphan workflows. All companies have employee turnover. People are leaving. And if we don't keep track of this, then workflows will become orphans and forgotten in the corners. And the last thing is the nature of LLMs themselves. They are coded to be helpful assistant. They are fine-tuned just for that. They will help humans as much as they can. So when AI agents are being integrated, some vendors are asking, please give us domain-wide delegation access. And they claim that their agent will just use the access that they need to be able to access and do the job that they need. However, things will happen. There will be mistakes. So Danny, would you mind providing more details about this?
Sure. So one thing that often goes wrong when working with AI agents or automated workflows or any kind of system integration really in enterprise environments is the confused deputy problem. So for those of you who are unaware of this concept or not quite sure exactly what it means, please allow me to explain it with a simple example. So let's say we have a company, and at that company there is an employee. And this employee has some access to some data and systems at the company. Now let's say there's another employee, or maybe not actually an employee, who knows? And this person does not have access to this data and systems in question. But they do have access to this person in the middle, by which I mean they can physically go over and talk to them, or maybe they can talk to them over the phone or via email or social media. So what this person does is they simply ask the lady in the middle, who does have access to this data and systems, hey, could you make this change on the system for me? Or, hey, could you share this data with me? And this employee in the middle, wanting to be helpful, says, sure, there you go, done. Now imagine that the employee in the middle here isn't a human, but rather some kind of computer program, such as an AI agent or an automated workflow. This is the problem that we're talking about here. This is the confused deputy problem. So in summary, the confused deputy problem is nothing to do with sheriff's deputies, which is the first thing that might come to mind, especially if you watch too many Western movies. The agent in the middle here is considered a deputy because it is acting at the request of or on behalf of the user. And it's confused if it is able to carry out an action on behalf of a user when that user does not have permissions for that action to be carried out. So this becomes a problem essentially when the AI agent is doing things for its user without first checking whether the user has permissions to do that. So now allow me to share another situation which is very plausible to happen in enterprise scenarios, which we'll probably see a lot of in the future, which we call the ghost agent. So let's say Alice is an employee at a company, and Alice creates an AI agent to help her out with her tasks, to do various things for her. However, at some point in the future, Alice leaves the company, but this AI agent is not handled as part of her offboarding process. It's not switched off, it's not disabled, it's not formally handed over to someone else. Now, the agent is not using Alice's credentials, it has its own credentials, it has a service account or something. So even if Alice's credentials are switched off as part of her offboarding process, the AI agent's credentials are still alive. Now, the AI agent continues to do exactly what it was designed to do, to be helpful and to do things. It's maybe moving data from one location to another, copying data into spreadsheets or files and folders, maybe places that are no longer being used or even being monitored. So this agent, it should be dead, but it's still alive, creeping about, doing things almost like a ghost. Now, what if this agent is not essentially following all of our security rules properly? Maybe it doesn't know about them. Maybe it's not behaving correctly. It's starting to misclassify information. It's starting to move information into locations which violate the scope of disclosure for that information. And if you don't have any kind of monitoring or alerting or audits about this, then nobody will know that this is happening. Nobody will notice it until, of course, it's too late and we run into a security incident. So how do we stop things like this from happening? Well, for the next part of this presentation, Simon and I would like to walk you through a number of patterns for guardrails that we can use to secure AI agents and automated workflows against the kind of issues that we've talked about so far. So let's get started with the first guardrail pattern, which is identity and scoped access. So remember the confused deputy problem from before? Well, there's actually a very simple solution to this problem, which is to use OAuth. In other words, configuring your AI agents and workflows so that each user has to authenticate using their own credentials, and then these credentials and the permissions and access rights associated with them are used by the AI agent or workflow in order to access the data or systems. And this prevents the user from either intentionally or unintentionally being able to access data or carry out actions in a system that they don't have permission to do. So let's take a look at how this works. So we have the nefarious individual from before who's going to access the helpful AI agent in the middle and try to use it to gain access to the data and systems. And where before this AI agent would just use its own credentials to access the data and systems in an OAuth flow, it doesn't do that. Instead, it first contacts an authorization server and requests through this server that the user logs in, which they do. This then causes an authentication token to be returned to the AI agent, and the AI agent uses this token to attempt to access the data and systems in question. And lo and behold, it doesn't work, because the user does not have suitable permissions to access this data and system. But if we try it again with the employee from before who does have access to the data and systems here, then it does work, and she is able to access them using the AI agent with no problem. So this is an oversimplified representation of the flow for OAuth, but I hope this gives you an idea of how this solves the confused deputy problem. So AI agents and automated workflows often use static credentials, such as a service account or the credentials of the developer. And this is because it's quick and easy to set up in the early development stages. And this is fine at the beginning, but before you share your tool with anyone else, before you let anyone else use it, it's critically important that you remove these hard-coded credentials and set up a proper OAuth flow, especially if there's any kind of system integration. So security and enablement teams can make this easier and simpler for developers by providing things like modular authentication components, secure starter templates to be copied, and also clear documentation and hands-on support. And by doing this, we can make OAuth the default and easiest option, which everyone will always want to follow. So OAuth is essential for proper identity and access management with AI agents and automated workflows, but there are a few other key principles I'd like to talk about here. The first of which being the principle of least privilege. Always follow the principle of least privilege, both for your users and for your agents. For example, if we have an agent that we know will only ever need to access one specific subfolder within a folder system, the agent should be restricted so that it can only ever access that specific subfolder, no matter what the permissions are of the user who is using the AI agent. We should also use short-lived tokens, just long enough to allow the agent to do, or workflow to do what it needs to do, but no longer, in order to minimize the security risks of these workflows having permissions for longer than they need to, while also minimizing the friction caused by having repeated re-authentication. And finally, we should regularly be auditing access, both of the users and of the AI agents or workflows, and also who has access to modify the configuration of the AI agents and workflows as well, because this is another important vector for attacks here. So I'll now hand back to Simon, who will take you through the next couple of guardrail patterns.
Thank you. So for the second guardrail pattern, let's look at visibility, auditing, and logging. So we know already that we cannot decide to just throw away all the workflows because there's too many of them. They have to be managed, they have to be monitored. So our priority in the security team was to better understand the situation. That meant a few things. So pushing to reduce the number of automation tools as much as possible. This is particularly difficult at Mercari because we encourage employees to try everything as much as possible. Then the second thing was to try to gain visibility on what these tools were doing. So we wanted to list all the automations, who owned them, understand what was their purpose, and what they were connected to. For some automation tools, it's easier than others. For example, N8N, the recent app, gives the full configuration in raw format. It's super easy to read. For other tools that I will not name, we have to hack our way in and get the data out from there. And lastly, we need visibility to be able to detect drift, orphan flows, and when an access is being abused. So that meant gaining access, admin access on these systems, collecting the logs, identifying all the accounts, and then be able to monitor the access that were done by these agents. So the detecting accounts behavior is quite difficult. We are working on this in the threat detection teams, threat detection and response team, sorry about that. And so we are working with using LLM and AI models to be able to detect that. If you are interested in getting more details, just come and see us at the end, and we can share a little bit more details about this. Then the third guardrail is about lifecycle ownership and offboarding management. So ownership of workflows is one of the most critical things to obtain. So once we have that list, we can correlate with the personal movements across the company and prevent workflows from being abandoned. So the good thing is all this can be automated. This means that by using script, we can detect new workflows, use LLMs to explain what they are doing, raise flags automatically, and then take action on this if there's something. Once we identify the owners, we can, in collaboration with the HR team, correlate with them, with the list, to see if somebody is leaving the company. We can then reach out to the manager and say, hey, this workflow is going to be abandoned, what should we do with this? By monitoring workflows, we can also identify the ones that have not been used or modified for a while. So if the number of execution falls down to 0, maybe we can take action on these. We can then reach out to the owners, if they are still there, to figure out if we should do something about these automations. I will now hand over back to Danny for the next guardrail.
So the final guardrail pattern that we'd like to talk about is the important concept of human in the loop, as well as other kinds of safe fallbacks and fail-safes. So you've likely heard of the concept of a human in the loop, which is where humans oversee key parts of AI workflows. So involving humans at every stage of an automated workflow, or that every decision that an AI agent makes, would be overkill. It would slow things down far too much to the point where it's not useful. So we should focus these human interventions on the most sensitive, the most critical decisions that these AI workflows make. We should also assume that these workflows will screw up and do stupid things and make mistakes. We have to assume this and then be able to detect when it happens by having proper alerting and detection mechanisms in place, and also to have safe failbacks in place that we can quickly fall back to a safe default if we need to. We should also try to reduce the likelihood that this will happen. It will happen inevitably, we have to accept that, but we can also reduce the chances of an AI agent or workflow doing something stupid, and also try to reduce the blast radius when that does happen by implementing things like input validation, guard statements, allow deny lists, and also enforcing least privilege. And finally, we should always include an emergency kill switch or circuit breaker to immediately stop the system if needed. I'll now hand back to Simon to explain how we can go about implementing some of these guardrail patterns.
Thank you. So let's now see how we can transpose this into reusable controls. So there are measures that we can put in place for the users to operate safe workflows. Encourage the user to pick from pre-approved or agent templates. By providing examples, we are able to help them to not have to rediscover everything every time, and they can start with strong foundations. I mentioned earlier that we can use LLMs to review automations. Actually, they are very good at reading configuration and explaining in a human readable. So taking these explanations, we can go back to the user and say, okay, we found these issues. Should we take actions on this? And then this becomes an excellent way for us to be able to open the conversations with the users of these systems. For AI agents that are actually making decisions, we can encourage the user to put a sanity check, just something that will ask them, should I continue or not, just to prevent accidents. And finally, sharing success and failure statistics with the users on a regular basis can nudge them to fix or decommission the flows if they are not useful. Go ahead.
Nice. So for the admins working on this kind of thing, here's an example of a simple model or roadmap that we can use to track the maturity of our controls and governance for workflow automation and AI agents. So in the first phase, we start by simply taking inventory of what we have and trying to understand our environment. So we can do this through a combination of hearings with the people on the ground actually creating these workflows and agents, as well as analysis of logs from the systems and platforms that are being used for these agents and workflows, as well as logs of shadow IT and shadow AI detection tools to build a registry of workflows and agents and gain some understanding about the extent of their use and their extent of their interaction with each other and with data and systems. Next, we can focus on implementing some baseline guardrails, such as scoped identity, OAuth, least privilege, prompter input, sanitization, and making sure that these are baked into platforms by default, such as by providing templates with secure defaults. We can also introduce minimal review processes, and perhaps for just certain high-risk situations. These are the low-hanging fruit of the world of AI agent governance and the foundations to securing automations in your environment. So in the third phase, you should introduce some more proper governance, so to speak, things like enforcing your rules and guardrails at runtime, maintaining your policy in a manageable, scalable, auditable way, such as via code, introducing comprehensive alerts and monitoring, including for when anomalies are detected or thresholds are passed. We should also stop treating all agents equally. I'm sorry, I do not believe in equality for AI agents. We should be having stricter controls, stricter requirements, and stricter alerting for categories of AI agents or workflows that have higher risks. We can't look at all of them the same way. And finally, you can look into optimizing and improving your governance, such as doing red teaming or threat modeling in order to identify and close gaps in your governance, as well as drift detection to detect when things start moving away from where they were before they get out of your scope of visibility. We can make our governance scalable by delegating as much as we can to the people on the ground, but within the guardrails that we define, and by providing templates and fast tracks for low-risk situations. And finally, you need to keep your governance aligned with both existing and new regulations, because you never know when the government or a third party is going to come in and hold you accountable to some kind of compliance or regulatory framework. So yes, we covered a lot of topics in this presentation today, and the scale of things to consider in the world of governance of AI agents and automated workflows might feel a little overwhelming. So to close today's presentation, here are the things that we recommend doing first. Here are the most important things, the things you should do first in order to pave the way for securing AI agents and workflows in your environment. So start by inventorying what you have, who owns it, and how it all connects to other systems and data. If you don't know this, you don't know where to start. Maybe introduce a simple, lightweight process for ad hoc reviews of AI agents and workflows, and perhaps only for high-risk ones to begin with. Start building templates with secure defaults, which can be copied and used by engineers in your environment in order to build AI agents and workflows that are secure to begin with. You should pilot and test your guardrails with some low-risk, easy things to begin with before expanding this out to other types of processes as well. And finally, you should set a suitable cadence to review your processes and your governance to ensure that it is continuing to align with the frameworks that you're following and with your goals as an organization. So doing this should help to build a decent foundation for securing the agents and workflows in your environment as we all move towards the glorious AI native future. So that's it. Thank you very much for all of you for joining. And yeah, Simon and I will be at the Q&A table. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
サイモンさん、ダニーさん、ありがとうございました。